The reality that we live in is essentially a big play, and we are acting it out. It always begins in the same place and it ends in the same place, and we get to improvise in the middle. This is where we learn and grow as individuals, and we bring that learning and growing, that wisdom, back to the whole, which is what we really are and who we truly are. We are the one who is creating all of this, pretending to be all of us. I'm wa-shay-la Sananda. Thank you for joining me today. What if the point of this world is to learn to accept it without needing to change it or have it be something other than what it is? If the whole idea, the whole concept of new earth and higher dimensional reality is actually just an escape from being present with the world that we're already living in. This radical acceptance of what this world is pretty challenging, I think, for most people. I think it's actually the thing that creates most suffering for us as individuals and for society as a collective, because there is this desire, this wanting things to be better, wanting things to improve, wanting to create a better world, which is a noble cause and a great thing to want, especially as a collective whole. However, the wanting of it isn't what creates it. I'm going to bring this back to radical acceptance. And what if we can simply allow things to be the way they are without needing to change them? It's not easy. And it's kind of the exploration that I've been in for the past couple of years, or at least year and a half. How can I hold joy and pain simultaneously? How can I know that there's a better world and a better place that I remember, and yet still be present here and allow this reality to play itself out? We are living in a duality, a dualistic reality, where we actually need the tension of the shadow and the light and the dark. We need the tension of the positive and the negative. That's the battery. We need, and we perceive that as the good and the bad. We have so many ways that this plays out. There's war going on. There's peace going on in other places, but there's this duality. And then there's always the threat of violence versus peace. And it creates tension just in simply our ability to feel safe in the world. And if we're fortunate enough to have found peace and feel safe in the world, it's quite likely that something will come into our world, such as a relationship or relationship dynamic that challenges our peace, that challenges our feeling of safety and security, or unrequited love, or love gained and then falling apart. Or, this this acts itself out on so many levels all the time. Maybe you're very comfortable in a healthy relationship, but you're challenged by something going on in your career or at work. I could list examples of how this duality plays out on and on and on endlessly, and I won't do that. I think you get the picture. My space of understanding that I've arrived at over the last couple of years of contemplating is that being able to accept where we are here and now is actually the catalyst for moving into a higher vibrational experience of reality. And so let me unpack that a little bit more to explain what I'm talking about. A couple of years ago, I had a Bufo experience. That's Bufo alvarius, I believe it's called the Colorado River toad. It's a shamanic medicine ceremony. It was the second one that I had done, possibly the last one, but who knows? This isn't something I seek out for myself, by the way. I don't seek out plant medicines, but they do find me sometimes, and I'm not recommending to anyone that you do it. You always follow your truth. And if that medicine calls to you and it's right for you, that's one thing. But if you are just seeking it out, sometimes that's an escape as well. My intention, and think about it, intention, the tension that I created for that experience, any medicine journey, you are in tension. You're experiencing the tension of that medicine, right? And the intention that I set with the shaman before I entered the space was that I wanted to experience more than I had ever experienced before. And I wanted to kind of blow the ceiling off of any limits that I had to my perception. And be careful about the intention that you set, because especially in a sacred ceremony such as this one, you will get it. I sure did. And I got more than I bargained for. Because how could I possibly have known what was coming? What I saw was creation, the beginning, from very, very beginning of creation. Of course, this is linear, the way that I experienced it, but I also experienced it non-linearly, which is pretty mind-blowing when you're living in a human body on planet Earth, because we need that linearity to unpack and understand our reality. So I will put it in linear terms, although there was also this experience beyond the linear. But I experienced all of creation from the very beginning to the very end, and then all the way back. So the beginning of time, if you want to call it that, time and space, the beginning of awareness, I suppose, the beginning of consciousness, to the completion of consciousness, like the completion of the consciousness experience, and going all the way back to beyond the realm of God. I understand the realm of God being a realm that we experience, but blowing way past that and continuing. And then going all the way to complete and total oneness of consciousness. And in even saying oneness, there's some separation, because in that place, there's no consciousness of oneness. It just is. There's isness. There's just pure being with nothing else. It's pure being. Then separating from that again and coming all the way back to the beginning, and then eventually coming back to myself. In an experience like that, there's no ego. So I had no concept of myself as Waxéla or anything else other than the consciousness experiencing consciousness. There was no I in that experience. There was awareness. It's taken a couple of years to unpack. So ever since I did that, I really, my mind was blown, and it wasn't comfortable. And it hasn't been comfortable to have had the experience of knowing and seeing it all the way that I experienced it. Everything has its beginning and ending, and it's all already happened, and it's all happening now. So to be able to hold that understanding of, oh, it's an experiment, it's a play, it's an act of consciousness experiencing, and it's an act of being, and then it's an act of doing as well. And yet, this is not what I am. This is not what we are. We are not these bodies, but our consciousness has the body for a period of time and space, and gets to operate in and through a body. And there's this knowing now that I know that this is not me and it's not what I am. And I mean, I guess I've known that all along, but there's a greater aspect of self that I know. And then coming back into holding, but I'm here in this body, experiencing this life in a linear way, and popping in and out here and there. And so I was doing so much training on creating the new earth, on creating a better world, on raising your frequency, on being a greater version of yourself, so that you can experience more and have more consciousness, and so that we as humanity can step in to higher frequency life, a higher dimension of living. And yet what I've also seen and experienced through all of this work that I've done, and things that I've witnessed, and the consciousness that I've integrated, I see how we must be present where we are and embrace where we are. And the acceptance, ultimately, the pure unconditional acceptance of where we are is the thing that allows us and actually naturally leads us to a higher experience of being. If you want to call it a higher timeline, a higher frequency reality where the things around us are shifting and changing. Maybe the people around us change, the experiences we've had change. And sometimes people also, I think, experience this as a Mandela effect or an effect of, oh, wow, I remember things differently than they are now. And this has happened to me multiple times. And here's what I want to say about that for anyone that is experiencing it. I do get a lot of people writing me questions about this. Like, have I shifted timelines? I'm experiencing something different. What does it mean? And so this is kind of my way of unpacking this concept for you and for me. For most of us, we are not going to be experiencing a big frequency shift from where we are now to some beautiful golden realm of light or some perfect world where no war exists and no violence exists and it's all perfection until we drop the body naturally, and then even then there will be some levels for many of us to move through before we're able to experience a realm like that. However, we can, and this is kind of the good news, is that we can incrementally experience higher frequency reality on a day-to-day, even hour by hour and moment by moment basis, simply by activating our presence and being present with our awareness as it is right now in this moment. It's not thinking I'm going to be present so that I can get to another place or higher dimension of reality, a higher realm, a higher experience. It's presence for the sake of presence, being conscious and aware for the sake of being conscious and aware. And when you get to that moment of pure presence, there are layers and layers and layers of it. It's not just a thing that happens suddenly I'm present. There are layers of the onion to peel of presence. It's not just a cut and dry, okay, I'm present, I'm not present. Meditation is very helpful in this, but bringing that meditation into your conscious, aware life, moment by moment, bringing presence, being present, putting the phone down, taking time every day to just be with what is without screens on. Go out in nature. Nature's so great for this because nature just is present, and when you go out in nature and you're present with nature, nature is present with you and you get to experience this just being, the essence of being. That is what will incrementally have you step in to new realities, new levels of being. And it's so subtle that oftentimes you won't even realize it. Or it might be some time of being there and it starts to dawn on you like, wow, things have really shifted in my world. I'm actually feeling a lot better or experiencing life in a more integrated way. Or you might not notice it all. Or sometimes it is more dramatic and you have this sudden like, oh, wow, things have really shifted for me. All of these are valid. I think where I'm really, really wanting to bring you is for the vast majority of us, most of our experiences, we are not going to suddenly enter into a whole new world consciously knowing like, oh, I've entered the 5th dimension or 10th or 100th or whatever you want to, whatever you're working toward. I think the only way that really happens is when we drop the physical body. And we always get to bring it back to be here now, to be present in this moment so that you can be aware of everything around you, of the world around you, hold the uncomfortable experience of life, of being a spirit, being a divine being in this incarnate body, beautiful, wonderful body, an incredible technology, but incarnate. We are in meat and we are light. We are light in meat. And that's what incarnate is. I'm in meat, right? So knowing yourself as light, knowing yourself as a divine being, and holding simultaneously, I'm in this now in this avatar. That in itself can be disconcerting, can be uncomfortable. And then everything else that goes on in this reality, knowing that there are horrible things happening to people, that there is violence, that there is abuse, that there is trauma happening to everyone, and letting ourselves just be present with that. That really takes something. It's not a simple task. But when you start to grasp this, like, oh, wow, this experiment has already happened. And we are living out the play. Here we are. And it really comes to do your best and have the experience that you came to have. And if you're in your purpose work and you're serving, that's awesome, because you've probably been here many times before and done this play before, and that is what you came here to do this time. Maybe you're in a position of just working on survival and you don't have it in you to be in a life of service this time. That's okay too, because you're having the experiences that you're choosing to have. And we just don't need to judge that. Right? There was so much judgment, and as humans, that's part of the experience, is being, a judging everything that shows up. And if we can bring that judgment into centeredness and acceptance, we upgrade our inner peace. We upgrade our presence. We upgrade our ability to hold the two sides of life. And that it brings me back to Anubis, who I've shared with many times as one of my guides. Anubis is the jackal-headed god who holds the heart on one side of the scale. He holds a golden scale, heart on one side and a feather on the other. And if your heart is lighter than a feather, you get to pass through to a higher experience of living, a higher experience of reality. And that is really our everyday project, is to work on ourselves. Am I letting my heart be present? Am I forgiving? Am I letting go of all of the things that I judge? That is going to lighten your heart. And simultaneously, it doesn't mean that you need to ignore all of the negatives, all of the that are going on in the world that are so uncomfortable to be present with. Allow yourself to just be, and to let yourself feel what you're feeling. If you're in a moment of feeling sadness and grief, then by all means, feel it, process it, let yourself experience it, and then come back to center and just be present with, well, how is this serving me? And when you let that emotion move through you and move out of you, then you come back to center and find that peace again. And emotion is waves, energy and motion. So this is certainly not about repressing that. I'm always all for feeling your feels, feel what shows up. Then don't get stuck in it. Don't marinate in it. Just process it through, let yourself move it, and then move into alignment, into peace in whatever way you can. And I found that being in nature for me is the best way to do that, even though nature has its violence embedded in it. If you go out in nature, you're going to see things, animals eating other animals. It's a consumption-based reality that we're in. Everything has to consume something to survive. Even if you're a vegetarian and you only eat plants, you're still consuming, you're taking the life of those plants in order for yourself to survive. And to have no judgment on that, to have no judgment on any of it. It's the reality that we're in. I think we might have come here to see how much we can hold and to allow ourselves to really experience holding the dark and the light, the positive and the negative, the polarities, to hold those and let that tension have us grow in our experience, in our wisdom, in our integration, in our ability to accept and be and bring our presence online in a greater way, to be more present and just be ultimately the love that we are, the light that we are, shining through these avatars, these bodies. I'd love to hear from you. What do you experience that takes you out of your presence, out of being present? And then what do you do to get back, to presence? And again, that is so much of the work that I do in Embodied Ascension, is getting present with what is, really looking at, pulling up the rug and looking at all of the things that we normally avoid looking at and we don't want to experience, because that's part of the embodiment journey. To be able to get into your body and be present with it, you have to look at everything that's there that's keeping you from being present. What are some of the techniques that you do to get present, and how do you feel about this holding the polarities, being in the light and the dark at the same time? Share with me in the comments. I would love to hear from you, and I'm always interested in hearing your perspective on these ideas, especially when they're kind of like rich, complex ideas. Even though being present is the simplest idea that's out there, our presence is what we are, it's not easy to accomplish, especially in this world of distraction. So many distractions available to us all the time. How do you integrate? How do you stay present? I'd love to hear that from you. Give me a like and subscribe if this is helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video. I love you. I cherish you. Namaste.